What's up everyone, this is Tranquil Toys back with another review, and this time I'm taking a look at these Mantis figures from this company, which is a dumb name by the way. And these are figures that I've been really looking forward to. I think this kind of insect humanoid type of character design is underrated. Before we take a look at these figures, we'll take a quick look at the box. Pretty plain, just black and some white designs and art. And then we'll take a look at the accessories, which I have put in a plastic bag already. So you get a wide variety of hands. You can see for yourself what kind of a hand it is. You can also look at different pictures online. And I do have a problem with this kind of joint setup with the hand. We'll get into that later. There are two other face plates. There's this one that has like this, I think it's like a parasite coming out of the eye. I guess that might be a real thing that happens to praying mantises. And you get this face plate with the white eyes. The eyes are also interchangeable, but it's really difficult. I don't have the right tools, I guess, to do that, so I will not be doing that because it is really difficult and I don't want to mess up or break the eyes. But I guess it is possible. They did make it possible. And then finally we get a couple of these. We get a couple of these insect arms. You get two long ones and then two short ones. And I also have a problem with these, and we'll get into that later when we get into the actual figure. One last accessory is this scythe with an insect arm at the end of it. Really cool weapon. And there's already hand. I put the hand there. The bottom comes apart so you can slide the hand through it. So very cool design. The insect arm at the end of the scythe does not articulate, and you can't like swap it out. It's a static arm, so it's just stuck like that. Now we'll get into the figures, and I have to point out that these accessories that I just showed you came with this figure with the red eyes. I changed the eyes so I wouldn't lose track of which one is which. And then I got the next accessories, which came with this one. There is a slight difference between them. There's a very slight difference between them, and I think there might be a difference between the figures as well. I don't know if you can tell now. So I'll show you with the figures though. You can totally tell with these figures that there's a difference, and the same goes for the accessories as well. The most noticeable part here is with the hips and the legs, so you can tell that it's kind of like the color underneath, the seafoam green color. This one is a lot darker. This one is a lot more white. You can tell on the hips as well. These are a lot more white. This is a little bit more of an off-white kind of color. So I don't know if you guys can tell. Let me know if you can tell, if you can't tell. So let me know if you guys can tell or not, but there is a difference in person. And if you have these figures, you know what I'm talking about. So the first thing that I need to point out about the figure is the quality. The quality is very good. There are some parts that are very fragile, especially these antennae right here. You got to be careful. They don't flex or bend or anything. It's just very brittle plastic, so it's definitely breakable, especially if you have it on a shelf and it falls off. Those are definitely going to break off. And the sculpted detail, again, you can see for yourself. I don't have to tell you every single little bit of detail. You can see that for yourself in this video and then in other pictures as well. So the colors are nice. The colors pop more in real life than on camera and even than on the pictures. So now we'll go over articulation, which is surprisingly very good. I wasn't expecting it to be this much. There was pictures that showed up the articulation, and it was like good articulation. But once you have the figure in hand, you can really see the kind of poses and the articulations the figure has. At the neck, these little flaps on the back of the head do hinge up and down, so they get out of the way when you move the head up. Then when you move the head down, it looks pretty far. Side to side, you get a pretty good amount. Then you have the second joint, the bottom of the neck, so you can look all the way down and look pretty much all the way up, as much as you need. And that also helps with tilting, leaning the neck even more. And then the shoulders, shoulder joint, ball joint, it also hinges, so you get a really good amount of range out of that. with some third-party figures or smaller companies, they don't really do a good job with this kind of a joint. It's like really tight and it could really break easily, but this feels really smooth and doesn't feel tight or anything, so that's really nice how that came out. It also swivels. Then the elbow hinges, swivels at the bicep and at the forearm. Also the sculpt, the spines here, or the spikes, are pretty spiky. They're pretty pokey, so you gotta be careful of that. You don't break them or you don't stab yourself. And then with the wrist, it's just a ball like glued to the hand, and that's a really lame setup because first of all, the hand doesn't stay in the wrist. It just, you know, kind of sits there. It doesn't really peg into the wrist. It just kind of sits there. This one is a little bit better, but it's still not a very good setup. I think they should have went with a different kind of joint setup, because it's probably the worst thing they could have done is you know, just glue a ball at the end of the hand. So this figure does get some minus points for that. But besides that, we'll move on to the torso. Oh, and these, so I'm not sure if that was supposed to be removable, but there was like a part here, and I just kind of lifted it up and it fell off. So I don't even know if that was supposed to come off or not, but that's gone. Like, I don't know where it is. I can't find it, and I don't have the time to look for it right now, so I'm just not going to worry about it. I guess that's a warning to everyone watching this to be careful of that part. The upper torso articulation is really good, but they did kind of cheap out on it. They did a cutout on the back here to allow for more range of motion. They don't have to do that, but they kind of went, you know, Marvel Legends style. But you do get good range out of it. And you have the lower torso ball joint, and together you get a pretty good amount of range out of the entire torso. So that's cool, and of course it swivels. And the sculpt is really good too. Then you have this kind of floating armor piece here. Get out of the way when you're moving the legs and the torso, and you can kind of adjust it. And the hips are actually really surprising. So it is just a ball joint going into the hip, but they move up very far. And then also there's a ball joint going into the thigh here, so not only do you get a swivel out of that, but you also get a tiny bit of, you know, ball joint movement from the thigh, so that's really cool. Double joint at the knee, pretty standard. And then a swivel and hinge for the ankle, which is nice, kind of like McFarlane style, or I guess Figma style. The feet are really small, so it does lead to some trouble when you're trying to stand it. And they didn't include a stand. I feel like they could have included even like a small stand would have been nice. And that's pretty much everything for the articulation. So really good articulation, really good sculpt. It does look, you know, nice. It just looks nice just kind of standing there. And obviously when you put it in different poses. And besides that, you know, just a few minor complaints, especially about the wrists. They could have done that way better. I don't know why they chose not to. Another thing I want to point out is the color. The color is okay, but I would have preferred like a green with yellow eyes, you know, like a regular green praying mantis. They went with this. This is based off a different kind of praying mantis, which is fine, but I would have preferred like the green with the yellow eyes kind of look. And the problem with the wrist gets worse once you put the scythe in it, because it just, you know, there's more weight on it and it just falls off way easier. So again, really unfortunate that they designed the wrist like that, but it does look cool when holding, you know, once it actually stays in there. Looks really cool holding the scythe. So no complaints with that, with the way it looks. But another problem that I did run into is when trying to put these extra parts in. So there are two holes you can put it in. You can put it in the wrist hole, and you can also put it in this hole that's in the side of the forearm here. But it just doesn't fit for some reason. I'm not sure why. It could be because the hole is just not, like the width of the hole is too wide. Because it looks like the joint goes in there, but it doesn't stay in there. So I think the problem is that the joint is too wide and it doesn't have any grip on the doesn't have any actual grip on the ball peg. Yeah, that's a huge problem. I think that really limits kind of the fun factor of the figure. If you guys don't have that problem, let me know. And also the different face plates are pretty good. I just don't like the whole thing about changing the eyes and how difficult they made it. And you can see the red eyes does have like a mask. The mouth is covered up by armor, and then the head with, or the face with the white eyes, has the mouth showing. And then the final one, the one with like the parasite coming out of the eye, that piece is also removable. And then hypothetically, you could change these eyes out, and this has a different mouth on the bottom, so it has more teeth showing and kind of weird tendrils or whatever this is. I'm not really sure what that's supposed to be. I do like the figure. I got it for 75 bucks on Gundam It. I think it's worth like 75 bucks. That's a pretty good price for this, just because of the amount of detail and the quality that they put into the figure itself. Now I'll do a couple size comparisons, and here you'll notice just how small this figure is. Here it is next to Marvel Legends Spider-Man. So that makes the figure look pretty short. Next to a Vegeta Fig Arts, a little bit closer in scale. Next to a Figma. Here it is next to a Masterverse figure, and this is kind of, and it's not a bad scale. I mean, it doesn't really bother me that much. This is kind of mostly the kind of figures that I wanted to pair with other fantasy figures. So this isn't that bad for me, at least. You guys let me know what you think. So that's it for the review. I think these figures are really cool. You guys let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. That's all I got to say. I'll see you in the next one.
I found them.